Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard with David Krayden. I'm your host, and I'm really happy to have my good friend back again, Kamel El-Cheikh, and I'm probably the only person who consistently pronounces your name correctly because I
That's why you're the MC. You're the official MC and spokesman of the event, the whole thing, David Krayden. You're awesome.
That's right. We're here to talk about the Million Person March, which is the hashtag is Million March for Children. It's a numerical 4. And I've been sending out information to everybody who asked me, and we've got a team of people working on this that is just superlative. They've been working around the clock. I mean, I see their messages every 30 seconds on my WhatsApp app. And I have, and of course, I've interviewed Bahira Abdul Salam on 2 occasions. She is the Toronto organizer. She has been tremendous. I will say publicly, I'm going to be the master of ceremonies at this event. I think I mentioned that when I talked to Bahira last time on this broadcast. Some people have said, how can you do that as a journalist? Well, I'll tell you how I can do that as a journalist. And I want to say this publicly on this broadcast because this event is a nonpartisan event. We are not there to support any political party, any political personality. Yep. This is an all-faith event. We're not there to promote one religion or another, although I think I want to applaud the Muslim community in Canada for putting so much effort into this and for being the ones who originated the idea, but others have come on board in an all-faith movement. I feel very strongly about gender ideology. I feel very strongly about parental rights. My own family has been impacted by gender ideology. I won't go into that much deeper in this broadcast, but I've had a personal experience, an adverse experience with the government's insistence on promoting this evil ideology in our school system. So I know what it's all about from a personal perspective. And I think there are times when a journalist has to come forward and say, I'm standing with right. I'm standing with justice. I'm standing for those who are doing the right thing. And I don't think there should be any controversy about whether or not parents have the right to raise their children.
God bless you.
Or they should relinquish that to the state. And if Justin Trudeau thinks that's far right, well, he thinks a lot of crazy things. Yeah. And he's done a lot of stupid things in his lifetime. He's done a lot of racist and misogynistic things. But yet he calls everybody else that. So you're just back from Lebanon.
Yeah.
You were visiting your family. Everything was moving quickly, moving ahead in your absence. And you were, of course, on the case every day. So tell me, you came back this week. What does it feel like to be back in Canada? And how are you feeling about this Million Person March next Wednesday, September 20th?
Oh my God, David, I'm excited. It's good to be back home. Now, I know I got Lebanese origins. This is the first time I visited Lebanon, to be honest with you. And I felt like a foreigner coming to a beautiful land where Jesus turned water into wine, peace be upon him. I went to the oldest churches and the oldest mosques. They're right across from each other. So that Christian-Muslim coexistence is centuries old. And what I'm excited about is, this march is bringing Christians and Muslims together. They're working around the clock, man, and it's beautiful to see. And you know what? As you said, David, this march, you're seeing our staff from coast to coast, leaders, volunteers, working around the clock, messages at 1, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. They're not stopping and they're relentless. And I told the government and the rest of Canada that we have a team that is relentless. You saw a good example of that. And again, you being an honest journalist, you're part of this. This is not a political movement. This is a nonpartisan movement to protect Canada's kids. And Canada's kids are not a political issue. And we're asking all political parties to come and walk in this. We're not allowing politicians to speak because we want them to listen for the first time. And I'm excited about it. And everybody should be excited.
Well, I'm excited. I don't think I've been involved in an event like this in a long time. And I was involved in a lot of events like this at one time, and I lent my time, my energy, and sometimes even my money to events that I believed in and causes that I believed in. And I was often frustrated with the way people thought of themselves, and they put ego first. I'm not seeing that this time around. I'm seeing people who are dedicated to a principle.
Yeah.
They're really putting the principle above ego. They're putting the principle above themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what successful movements require, is that kind of perseverance. And I think we're in a very dangerous time in Canada.
Absolutely.
And you know, we're another school year is upon us. We're going to be facing another one of these so-called pride seasons, which go on and on and on.
Yeah.
The government, and I've done some stories on this while you're away, the government is spending tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money to promote gender ideology, to promote pride season, to go after parents. They're spending your tax dollars to go after parents, to label them as far-right extremists if they insist on knowing what their children are doing in school, if they insist on permitting or not permitting their children to make decisions that are so consequential, they're going to affect them for the rest of their lives. And I think this has got to be exposed. And what we're doing here next week is saying enough of the state intervening in our lives, taking over the lives of our children. We're taking our children back. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Isn't that for you what this is about? Taking our children back.
That's what it is, David. And we're unapologetic about it. I say that word often. And I'm saying, hey, look, the pride community, not all of you, obviously a substantial number, have been advocating, for taking parents' rights away from kids. Okay? We're going to call a spade a spade. You asked for equal rights, you got it 10 years ago. You've asked for all of them. I have, I've worked with, subordinates from the pride community. I've worked with so much. And I disagree with that lifestyle, because under the Canadian Constitution, I have the right to disagree with it. That's what makes me a Muslim, you an evangelical Christian. And it's okay. But in a free democracy, you must be able to disagree and agree freely. That's what Thomas Jefferson says, right? So for me, the kids are a zero, they're a red line, zero tolerance. They're not a political issue. Do not engage with kids in your political debates. I don't care what level of government you are. Until they're 18, they can decide their future. If they're in a Protestant home, well, guess what? They're going to live Protestant Canadians. If they're in a Muslim home, they're going to live as Muslim Canadians, Buddhist, you name it. Parents, we're going to trust Canada's parents to parent Canada's kids. The teachers have to butt out of parents' lives, and we're going to make sure we're going to hold them accountable. And I got some announcements in my speech on Wednesday, September 20th, 2023 at 9 a.m. I'm going to make some bold announcements. If you like that 1 million people march, you're going to like what I'm going to have to say, because we're going to be relentless. We're going to be relentless, and we're going to hold all these bodies accountable, including the teachers union, including the pride community, and including all levels of government. And guess what? They're starting to respond because they have no choice.
Well, that is fantastic. And it's that kind of enthusiasm that's driving this march. And I believe we're going to get not just 1 million, but more than 1 million when everything is tabulated across this country. The interest is extremely high. I'm sure you've noticed that not only did New Brunswick come out in favor of parents, but Saskatchewan has decided that they're going to initiate legislation to ensure that parents must give their permission if children decide to change their identity, gender identity, or their pronouns.
Yes.
And Premier Scott Moe on Wednesday said he's even prepared to use that notwithstanding clause to protect parental rights. I mean, isn't that fantastic?
Well, I mean, what we're doing today with you, David, and with all the people working around the clock, our leaders, our stakeholders in this movement, what we're doing is we're allowing politicians that want to do the right thing to speak. Okay? Now, I like the 16, we're not going to stop there. We want it to be 18. Okay. After 18, the sky's the limit. This is Canada. This is not Timbuktu, where people are held at the stake. You can do whatever you want. This is a free society. You can be a Christian, a Muslim, whatever you want to be. You could be believing. You could be an atheist. We have atheists in our group, agnostics. Okay, I don't care what your personal belief is. My prerogative is to ensure that your civil liberties are intact. And Saskatchewan, thank you for doing it 16. You're still not done. You got to do it at 18. And then that way we'll put a rubber stamp on it. We're setting a culture of understanding here and a benchmark. We're laying the guidelines, and we're demanding all of Canada's politicians from every province and the federal government themselves to adhere to our standards. Just like all parties virtue signal to the pride community, while the straight tide, the heterosexual community, which is comprised of 97.8 to 98.4 or 5% of Canada's populace, it's time to virtue signal for us. And we're going to be relentless in it, and we're going to be unapologetic, and we're going to demand, and we're going to make life a little bit tough on you because you had a honeymoon for 40 years.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you on 18, certainly being the cutoff age. I do applaud what they did, only insofar
Absolutely
as it does take guts to do anything on this file, because when you do so, you're immediately labeled as transphobic, sometimes even homophobic, for even defending parental rights up to age 16.
Yeah,
and it took some political moxie to do this. Yeah, and I hope we see this from Alberta next, because it should be coming from Alberta. I'm not expecting the gutless government of Doug Ford in Ontario to do it. He's caused more than enough problems.
Yes,
he's talking. He agrees with this in print. His education minister says, "Yeah, we agree with it in principle, but we're not going to pass any legislation."
Yeah, so thank you very much for the political jargon. Great. Yep. But you're going to have to do it you got to do it in laws. Okay. That's what we're waiting for.
He's terrified of the teachers union. Yeah. And it strikes me. And of course, the teachers union immediately struck back against Scott Moe in Saskatchewan, saying this was just horrible, that the province would put parental rights above teachers.
Well, the teachers union is under, look, with all due respect to teachers, I've been working with them for 20 years in one of my corporations that Trudeau closed down. Been doing 15 years of scholarships. So I have a lot of respect for teachers and principals. Let's not paint all of them with the same brush, but I'll tell you this, the teachers union, the people that are woke, we're coming after you. And we're going to do it peacefully, and you're not going to talk in this rhetoric again. This is unacceptable, and we're going to be unapologetic, and we're going to hold you accountable to our Canada's kids. Canada's kids belong to the parents. They don't belong to you. Go teach the science, the math, the geography. You do whatever you want, but out of the houses.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of good teachers who are just sick to their stomachs over what's going on. But the teachers union is parasitical.
Absolutely.
They're taking the teachers' money and they're using it for a political cause. A lot of them don't agree with.
And they're firing teachers too. They're firing good teachers. Matt Alexander, Josh's father, and the wife, they're both teachers. They got fired for standing up for students. And look, there are teachers oppressed. So we're going to tell Canada's teachers is we need you to take a courageous, noble stand, because you're paying the union. You're allowed to go against your union, okay, and hold them accountable. Now, if many of you do that, then your union is weakened, okay? The union has a woke philosophy, and it's unacceptable. The union does not represent, it's funny, okay, the pride community, let's face it, they don't procreate. They adopt kids from a heterosexual community. So the teachers union represents the heterosexual community. We can make that argument, right? Maybe some gay couples that have adopted kids, okay? But it's still coming from heterosexual parents. The union itself is narcissistic, like Trudeau himself and like some of Canada's provinces, the politicians that are leading there, okay? And this is the seismic shift that we're looking for. We're going to hold the teachers union accountable. We're going to hold the provinces accountable. We've certainly held Trudeau accountable. He doesn't like what we're doing. As a matter of fact, he's visited a couple of mosques, and he's kind of begging for me to stop this campaign, which I won't, okay? Because now we have priests, imams engaging with each other, trying to protect all of Canada's kids. And that's, you know what? It's a wave, and you can't stop it now. And it's called the straight tide.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Trudeau's afraid of. Interesting polls appearing throughout the summer indicating that a lot of new immigrants, people not born in Canada, but who came to Canada, are turning against the Liberal Party in large numbers, are turning against Justin Trudeau because they came to Canada for freedom. Yes. And they ain't getting it from Justin Trudeau. Not getting it. He is not just attacking their children, he's attacking their free speech, he's attacking their ability. And Canada has become a place where they'll put you to death if you're depressed. Yeah, and it really has become the obverse of what Canada used to be, as a shining beacon, a city on the hill, like the United States always brags about. Yeah. We too were a city on the hill, a shining beacon of freedom. Trudeau has decimated that. He has eviscerated that. He is destroying what Canada has always stood for, and he continues to arrogantly just laugh at people and deride people who disagree with him. And I think he's coming up for a big pushback in a lot of fronts, and he's going to get it next week when a lot of people are going to go out there and say, hands off our children, Justin Trudeau, and let us raise our children with the values that we believe in, not the values of the Liberal Party or you, Justin Trudeau. Absolutely. Sorry, I'm getting calls in. We're working around the clock here. And that's okay. This MCM, by the we are just, this is the first of 2 interviews, and we're going to do another one before the march. Absolutely. But I want to get the word out today, throughout the weekend, that this is a march that is going to be successful. We're right on track, and things are progressing as they should. So Wednesday morning, from Halifax to Vancouver and small towns in between, people are going to be forming up here in Ottawa at Parliament Hill, at their provincial legislatures, at city halls. I'm sure they're going to get there early, but what time do things actually start on Wednesday morning? Well, again, David, what we're trying to do is, I'm going to paint a picture of what to expect. So wherever you are in this country, okay, what we want to do is we want parents to say, you know what, son, my daughter, you're not going to school today. We're going to take you downtown to the city hall, whether you're in Barrie or Vancouver or whatever. And you're just going to come down. Your chances are you're probably going to have a cooler. You made some sandwich arrangements because you're going to be there all day, probably until the late evening, 6 or 7, maybe even before that. We'll see what it's going to be like. But we're telling parents, expect to come down. Some parents are anxious to go like 8 a.m. So you're going to see people come earlier. Okay. But the festivities, they start at 9. Okay. Is there going to be a march? There might not be much of a march because of how tight it's going to be. Okay. There's people coming from all walks. Buses. I'm hearing buses are coming to Ottawa now. I didn't hear about them before. People are coming from Vancouver to Ottawa. I'm like, why don't you protest in Vancouver? No, I want to be in Ottawa. So, okay. I mean, I'm not going to say no. Welcome to the nation's capital. But there's people coming from Toronto, Montreal, David, New Brunswick, and it's going to be massive. I don't know how big it is because I've never really organized a 1 million people march before. I mean, I don't do this for a living. I've called for it. The biggest team I've managed was 3,000 people, but I mean, it's humbling. You see it, David. You're in some of those groups. You're seeing the mama bears. You're seeing 900 priests come in the other day. God bless them. And I'm just doing podcasts at 10 a day now, and it's like, holy smokes, people really want to do this, and it's going to look like a Canada Day is what it's going to look like. The festivities, 9 o'clock is when we're telling people it's going to start. Speeches are probably around 9:30, 10 o'clock.
and it's just going to be different from coast to coast. Now, it's 9 a.m. local time. So if you're in Vancouver, your 9 a.m. is different than mine. By noon, the whole nation is coming together. So that's the expectation for the protest.
That is fantastic, and I'm hearing so much enthusiasm. And we've got a lot of issues we're struggling with in Canada. I like to talk about the fact that we're losing our freedom of speech. As a journalist, that's very important to me. Trudeau is coming down hard on censorship. There's more coming in the fall with another bill that's going to make something called disinformation illegal. Subject to prosecution. That's bad. Thank God we've been able to get this word out before any further infringement on our freedom of speech has occurred, and we're going to fight that too. But I believe it's going to be a victory next Wednesday. Not just for parents everywhere, but this is going to be an exhibition of religious unity, all faiths coming together. It's going to mean people who once voted Liberal and are fed up with the Liberal Party are going to join hands with people who vote for other parties. It's just going to be a unity day, a day of unity for people of different political persuasions, different religious faiths, but who all believe in freedom and liberty for the individual and for parents. So
we want to get Canadian families to bring in Canadian flags. Look, we're here celebrating our nation, celebrating the Parliament Hills and the War Memorial, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We're celebrating Niagara Falls and Whistler, BC, David. We're celebrating whites and blacks and Hispanics and Middle Easterns. We're celebrating all that. We're celebrating Terry Fox. We're celebrating Emily Stowe and Gabrielle Roy, who got the women's vote 60 years ago. That's what we're celebrating. We're bringing people together, but we're not only doing that. After that celebration, there's going to be a fellowship that's unbreakable, irregardless of all the violation of laws that you're going to pass as Prime Minister. And at some point, we're looking to eradicate all those laws that you're passing right now, okay? And I will say that, and I will say that without fear, okay? Because fear is up here. You are passing laws to oppress me. And I refuse to acknowledge you as my Prime Minister. You are in a privileged position. You were elected democratically. You got a minority government. You made a coalition with the NDP. I don't want to get political. I don't like the political jargon. But again, Canada and the nation is above you or me and the Prime Minister himself. And he needs to remember that.
Right on. Well, we're going to get this message out today far and wide. That's Wednesday, September 20th, 9 a.m. Whether you're in Vancouver, whether you're in Halifax or Ottawa, it's 9 a.m. local time. Show up at your local mayor's office, your provincial legislature, and in Ottawa, it's at Parliament Hill, and it's going to be crowded. So, Kamel, thank you for joining us. This has been Kamel El-Cheikh, the primary organizer of the Million-Person March. This has been his brainchild. This has been something he's worked on. He's wanted to happen, and it's going to come to fruition next week with the help of hundreds and thousands of people who believe.
Thank you very much.
He does.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all the staff. All the staff have been amazing.
And we'll do this again very shortly.